All right. You wanted to talk about TNA, I heard.
Yeah, yeah, that was the rumor before the recording button was pushed.
Ah, okay. All
And we
right.
sat there having half an hour of a podcast without recording it for no reason other than it amused us.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's
But
pretty good reason.
yeah, and since we're here and we'll
Mhm.
just we'll go through it. I just want to give a shout out, frankly, to Impact Wrestling.
Mhm.
Rebranding as TNA. Rebranding as TNA or reverse
Revert
brand.
branding.
I'm not sure. As long as I don't know if they're gonna make a stop at Global Force Wrestling this time, but like, anyways, the video they put out announcing this change.
Mhm.
I don't know if you saw it.
Oh yeah, no, I saw it.
It was so good
That
because it
video main
was
evented Bound for Glory. It was the very last thing they did. The main event, and then that video. They were like, "This, this is what
it
it all
was
leads to."
like I kept expecting Matt Hardy to come running out and being like, "Yeah,"
Oh, I
you know,
I thought he was coming out from the lake.
yeah,
I thought it was the lake of reincarnation.
reincarnation,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, no, I thought I had no idea what was going on. All I knew was everyone was super serious about things have to change, and I'm like, really? Do they? And is there that much turmoil in it? But anyway, um, and then they pull out this chest and they crack it open, and inside is like the TNA logo. I thought maybe there'd be like a belt or something with the logo on
Yeah.
it, or something. No, it was just like light, and they were just like, yeah, we're gonna go back to that double entendre thing. And like I was reading some of the reaction and reasoning behind it, and they're like, well, it really appeals to nostalgia. Was anybody nostalgic for TNA branding? I
No,
kind of thought that it was still called TNA. They just called it Impact for the show. But
well, that's what it was for a long time. And then I don't know, I think 2018, I don't know.
mm-hmm.
Not too many years ago they were like, "Okay, we're dropping the TNA because
It's stupid.
it's stupid," right? Everybody knows that TNA, because it stands for tits and ass and
What?
whoa, aren't
No,
we.
totally normal armpits.
Well, this was a company that Vince Russo had a hand in. Well, not founding, but he was on
Doing.
the writing team very
Yeah.
quickly. So it was just that name was so cringeworthy that you assumed,
Mm-hmm.
they would have to get rid of it eventually.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I
Like,
I, I
who
don't
was
know.
asking for this?
Well,
Was it
apparently
like maybe CM Punk will come back if it's TNA again?
apparently what like a lot of their international TV partners, like the name TNA Wrestling is more famous than Impact Wrestling. So their TV internationally is going to do better. Um,
So that's good.
so that's good. Yeah. So that's one thing. And I guess they did some surveying of fans who said that they actually prefer the TNA Wrestling name. And
I think those fans might have been kidding. Like, yeah, man, sure. I prefer that.
well, I mean, there is, like that's the thing about surveys, right? Like they're really just surveying how people who take surveys feel about
Eh.
things. I don't know how representative they are of the whole. Like, I
Hmm.
heard once that there was a study saying that people don't get their news from Facebook, but then I learned that that study was conducted by cold calling people on the telephone. Well, yeah, people who are just blindly picking up their landlines aren't getting their news from Facebook. So you have to be a little careful when you're taking a
Hmm.
survey
You're
as
aggregating. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But I do understand their belief that the name TNA Wrestling is more famous than Impact Wrestling.
Yeah.
Because if you think of Impact Wrestling, you think of the last 5 years of Impact Wrestling, where the show is, better. It's not like
Mm-hmm.
TNA Wrestling did a lot of stuff that made you embarrassed to be a wrestling fan. Impact Wrestling doesn't really do that, or at least not as much. And they focus more on just like good wrestling and stuff now. Um, but uh but it's it's not as important to the overall wrestling landscape that TNA wrestling was, from 02 to 2018, right?
Yeah.
So I think by going back to the TNA name, they kind of associate themselves with more of a major league brand. Like TNA wrestling is more major league than Impact Wrestling, even if you like Impact Wrestling better than TNA wrestling. So I understand why they did it, but I never liked the name, so I don't like that it's back.
Brand recognition is a hell of a drug, but and when the announcement came out, and this is the last thing I'll say on it, there was a brief glimmer of hope. And I was like, are they going to do it? Are they going to do the thing that would get me back front row center? And like immediately after announcing the name change, the next sentence out of their mouths was, and no six-sided ring.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, what a wasted opportunity.
I like the look of the six-sided ring. I thought it was really cool, but I guess the complaint about it is that it's not as safe as a four-sided ring. So not much you can really do about that.
I wish they would have used it, as more of a gimmick match, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, once every now and again, someone has a match in the six-sided ring. They call it Six Sides of Pain or some fool thing. And, or do like a pay-per-view every year where it's like, for this event, it's going to be contested in this kind of ring. I think, if you gave people a little bit of a time to adjust to it. Well, money, obviously. But the six-sided ring was really kind of ahead of its time because it came out at a time when wrestlers were not super into change. So it died a slow death, I think. But I can understand the concerns, from a safety perspective.
Yeah. So TNA wrestling did do some good things. But obviously it's more associated for the kind of bad stuff that it did. But like, I remember Kurt Angle and Nigel McGuinness had a really good feud in Impact Wrestling. Kurt Angle and Samoa Joe had a really good feud. Most things with Kurt Angle were really good. I guess that's the common denominator, but also the X Division. I think the X Division really took WCW's cruiserweight division and kind of retooled it. Yeah. Well, the good thing about the cruiserweight division in WCW was actually that WCW didn't care about them. They were just kind of like, yeah, whatever, just go do what you want to do.
Go do amazing 15-minute matches while I'm tying Hogan's boots.
They did the same thing with Chris Jericho. They're like, just go, whatever, just, do your thing. And it's fantastic. Chris Jericho's entire WCW run is fantastic. Entirely because nobody was paying attention to what he was doing. So
yes, indeed.
So they couldn't get in the way. It was much better. But yeah, that's TNA wrestling. I think it's just a way for them to maybe make themselves feel a little bit more important. TNA just feels a bit more important to the wrestling landscape than Impact does. So
yeah, I mean, there was a time when they were the next closest thing to WWE. So
yeah,
they probably want to get back there. And I think AEW level is still a lofty goal for them, but it's a more achievable goal than beyond that.
If they could start drawing 1,000 people to every television taping, they'd be on their way. They could get I don't think it's out of the question that they could get closer to AEW than AEW is to WWE, but they're going to need stars to do that. So if they've got money to invest in stars, then it's possible.